Welcome, I'm Todd Robbins. October 2nd, a remarkable amount of just bad things happened on this day. Here's just a handful of them. We're starting off in 1851 with a demonstration of the Pasilenic, is that right? Pasilenic, I believe. Pasilenic sympathetic compass. It was a device that would show that snails create a permanent telepathic link when they mate. A remarkable device, revolutionary, got everyone talking about the fact that it was completely fake and didn't work. In 1871, the U.S. Mormon leader Brigham Young was arrested. What is he arrested for? Bigamy. It brings up a number of things, the idea of being married more than once at the same time. Why would anyone want to do that? And it also reminds me of the old joke, which is the famous words of that Mormon leader, I don't care how you bring them as long as you bring them young. Moving right along, 1904, the German general Lothar von Trotha. Boy, doesn't that sound like a character from some spy novel, Lothar von Trotha. Issues an order, and the order to exterminate the Hurriel people of Namibia. I'm sure. It was the first genocide of the 20th century. It wasn't the last. And they ended up killing 65,000 Hurriel and 100,000 of the Nama tribe. Excuse me, not the Nambia, but Nama tribe. In 1941, 6 Paris synagogues are bombed by the Gestapo, because that's what they do, or did. And perhaps will do again. Stand by. In 1942, the Queen Mary, the great ocean liner that had been pressed into service as a troop carrier during World War II, was on a covert mission, and I believe it was in heavy fog. It sliced through the cruiser, the HMS Curacao, and it sliced the boat in half, and 230 people were killed because of that. If I believe they couldn't stop to save the survivors, if I remember correctly. I might not, but I just remember it was a terrible, terrible thing. And supposedly to this day, the Queen Mary, which is in my hometown of Long Beach, California, if you go down to the area where they slice through right at the bow, is that right? Yeah, the bow. You can hear every once in a while, late at night, the screams of the sailors that were killed as the ship cut that other ship in half. It could happen. 1944. Polish resistance fighters capitulate in the Warsaw uprising, and there were some 250,000 people killed during that. The Nazis were fighting the resistance fighters in Warsaw during the uprising towards the end of World War II, or the end of the war in Europe. It still was raging on in the Pacific. Sometime after Germany surrendered, but anyway, this was before that. And as I understand it, the Soviet troops were on the outskirts, on the east, and could have come in and turned the tide, but they didn't. And they just allowed a slaughter to happen in Warsaw, weakening the town so that when the Soviets did roll in, there was no one there to resist them. So I've heard. On a lighter note, but still darker, in 1955, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, a wonderful TV show, premiered on CBS in the United States, and that just the march of the marionettes, the funeral march for a marionette, the whole everything about it was iconic. A wonderful show. And also on this day, 4 years later, in 1959, Rod Serling's Twilight Zone premiered, also on CBS. CBS was doing some wonderfully dark things in those days. On this day in 1967, Members of the Grateful Dead band were arrested by narcotics agents because they had drugs. Shocked. The Grateful Dead using drugs? Shocked. I am shocked. In 1968, there was so much uprisal. Boy, that's a good word. I may have just coined a word there early in the morning here. There were, in New York, and all over the world, there were many uprisings, there were many protests, and students that were against a lot of the military things that were going on, especially in the United States. The Vietnam War was raging on, and there were many protests all over the place. There were also protests in Mexico City. There were students protesting, and the Mexico City police opened fire on them, killing between 300 and 500 of the students. That's one way of dealing with it. I remember this next event very, very well. I have some relatives down outside of Washington, D.C., and in 2002, there was just terror in the air because on this day in 2002 was the first sniper attacks, what they called the Beltway sniper. It extended over 3 weeks, and during that time, no one knew what was happening. I mean, it was so random, and there were so many rumors flying about, and it was just pandemonium down there. Everyone was in fear for their lives, as well they should be. Of course, the sniper was captured along with his son, I believe, and that's a whole wonderfully dark story. I should probably do that on my Abnormalcy podcast about making plans, dark plans, because it was strangely thought out. It was not a random thing. It was very calculated. But that's what happened in 2002. I get a little choked up when I think about people who work very hard at doing dark things. On this day in 2016, this is really what I'm getting choked up about. Kim Kardashian is in Paris, and she is robbed at gunpoint in her hotel room of $10 million in jewels. Don't look at me, I have an alibi. In 2018, such a dark event. The Saudi-American journalist Amal Khashoggi enters the Saudi, I would say Saudi, excuse me. You say Saudi, I say Saudi. Saudi consulate in Istanbul to do an interview of some kind, meet with someone. He was lured there, killed, never seen again. Dismembered, they say, body parts smuggled out, and he just disappeared. A bit of a mystery today, even though higher-ups have claimed it is an extraordinary time in which we live, in that some prominent officials went, yeah, we had a hand in it, and nothing really was done about it. Extraordinary. And we have a couple of birthdays here to talk about, starting off in 1452. He was the leader that was corrupt, despised by many. He was vindictive, outspoken, brazen in the awful things he did. No, not him. I'm talking about Richard III, who was born on this day in 1452. In the year 1800, on this day, Nat Turner was born. He was an American slave who led a rebellion in 1831, major slave rebellion, the first really big one to kind of capture the public attention. And that rebellion started a sort of public debate about the institution of slavery that ended, well, it hasn't ended, excuse me, but it came to a head with the Civil War some 30 years later. Nat Turner born on this day. Also on this day, There's a lot of talk about socialism and communism and fascism, and there's a lot of talk about Marxism. And on this day, one of the leaders of the Marxist movement, was born. Julius Marx, better known as Groucho, was born on this day, truly an anarchist if there ever was one, in the most joyous form ever. Groucho Marx, born on this day in 1890. And also 5 years later, in 1895, Bud Abbott was born. Buddy Abbott is an interesting character. He worked out at the sideshow in Coney Island, the Dreamland sideshow, as a stick. What is a stick, you ask? Well, I'm going to tell you very briefly. A stick is someone that's on the payroll that acts like a regular person, an average spectator. And when they would do a ballet out front, which is the little sales pitch done by you know him as a barker. The correct term is outside talker. Someone stand there saying, it's wild, wonderful, one of a kind. You got to come in and see the show. Now is the time to go. The show's getting started. Buy your ticket now. There was often someone from the show that was just stand there listening to the sales pitch and would be the first one to buy a ticket, breaking the ice and getting everyone else, because no one wants to be the first in doing that kind of thing. So Buddy Abbott did that when he was just a young man. He was about 20 years old. And he would then come into the show, and various performers at the Dreamland Sideshow sold things. The dwarf sold a miniature Bible. The giant had an oversized ring. And he would be the guy who would be the first one to buy them. After they perform their act, they'd say, if you want a souvenir, I've got these souvenirs. And he would be the first one to buy. He then went on to perform comedy and burlesque. He became a straight man and hooked up with Lou Costello and became the best burlesque comedy duo ever of Abbott and Costello. And that was Bud Abbott, who was born on this day in 1895. He was the best. Well, so there you go, and there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you didn't enjoy this video, well, I apologize. But this is these videos are the kind of videos you'll like if you like this kind of thing. And so, if you didn't enjoy this video, I'll refund your misery. Be more than happy to. But if you did enjoy, hit the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification so that you'll be made aware of when the next video in this series and also other videos that are coming out very soon on this channel come forth. They emerge from the ooze, as I like to say. That is, assuming you survive all the wretched things that will be happening to you on this day. And if you do survive, I hope to see you back here. And if you don't survive, well, if you have the opportunity, make your death truly glorious, truly spectacular. Just go out in a blaze of glory with glitter, if you have the opportunity, because I will guarantee you, I will say nice things in your memorial service and talk about you on this day next year. It's a promise from me, Todd Robbins. In regards to this day that'll be and all that will be happening, well, good luck.